president of KMAG, her president, is taking the semester, and they're in Australia, and so he's probably having a lot of fun, and we're here in beautiful, rainy Austin. So there's an agenda on the tables for y'all just look at. So we need to approve the minutes.
Yes.
So motion to approve. Okay. Anything? Well, I guess we should ask.
You could like see if anybody wants to change it.
Any changes?
Looks good.
Okay, yeah. Approved. Minutes approved. So we are going to, as you can see the agenda, we're going to start with, oh, we go ahead. Sorry.
Very important business.
Happy belated Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we have Mrs. Ewald here. She's going to be talking to us about foreign language choices. And I know you got choice sheets coming right now, so thank you very much for coming. And I don't know if you want to go ahead and come on up here and And a lot of people may see this on the video, so there are a lot of people at home who will be watching this later.
No pressure.
Just so you know, you're on camera.
Really,
7:31 in the morning. Can I sit here? Sure. Anywhere you want.
Okay. So I thought I would just give a quick overview about the foreign language department and options as choice sheets are coming up, and that's what's happening. And then if you have any questions, right, then I'll answer your questions. Some of this might be obvious, and I'll try not to be too obvious. There's 6 languages currently available. Am I talking to 6th grade parents, 5th grade incoming?
A combo. Yeah.
Combo.
Because I show up.
Mostly 6th grade.
Usually it's the 6th grade parents that are really.
Okay, I just wanted to get a feel for, what we're talking about. So 6 languages, Spanish, Latin, German, Chinese, Japanese, and French. Most of us do a a 1A and a 1B option, but not all of them. So with, for example, Japanese does 1A and 1B. French also we have 1A, 1B choice, and then for French 2. German, it's 1A, 1B, with the possibility of German 2.
Might want to explain the 1A, 1B to maybe some of the that you're hearing too.
Yeah, so essentially why we do 1A and 1B in middle school, which I think is a fantastic idea, and I totally support it, is it just gives the students an opportunity, middle school students, to slow down, really kind of immerse themselves more in the language because they are just in middle school, but it is high school credit class. So we basically, I'm just going to use the example of French, I don't know why. Just off the top of my head. For French 1, for high school credit, they would take that in 9th grade normally, but if you have the opportunity to take that in 7th grade and 8th grade, we just take French 1, divide it in 2. At 7th grade, you have basically half of the year, and then 8th grade, you have the other half. So when you're done with middle school, if you take it in 7th and 8th grade, you walk out with 1 high school credit, and you can walk in to high school with already a 4.0 GPA, which is amazing, and that's why I think there's a lot of value there. If the student decides to start in 6th grade, which is an option for most of our languages, then they would take, obviously, 6th grade 1A, 7th grade 1B, and then 8th grade, because they're magnet students, we want them to continue with the language, and it's most advantageous for them anyways. You don't want to have that gap in 8th grade where they're just not taking a foreign language. So if you do start in 6th grade, 1A, then 7th 1B, and then 8th grade, you would get a whole year of level 2, whatever language that would be. So then you walk into high school with 2 full high school credits, which is also pretty amazing. It's not obviously required for 6th graders to take a language. They have that option. And for some students, it's, they're just not ready to do that yet. And we encourage the students and their parents, you all to decide together whether that's appropriate for the student at that time. Some students are gung-ho, they love language, they're super into it, they want to get going right in 6th grade. Whereas there's so many options in 6th grade, they're just getting used to middle school, that they just want to slow down and just wait and take it in 7th grade. So that those are options there, which is really nice. The only one, Chinese is Chinese 1 and 2. They don't break it up. And then everybody else, Japanese is 1A, 1B, Latin 1A, 1B, and these are options. And then Spanish has that as well. Are there any questions? I'm going to talk specifically about Spanish because there's lots of different components for the Spanish courses. Are there any just general questions about high school credit? Yes?
Well, my question was about French.
Oh, great. I think, let me consult someone. Okay, I'm going to consult. Okay, go
You
ahead.
mentioned 1A and 1B for everything. Does French have 1A and 1B also?
They do, yes, they do. They do.
I do.
I do, yes. So I do have, right now there's just 4 6th graders taking 1A. The majority of them are 7th graders. But I encourage, if I have several of, the 6th graders are super gung-ho, they want to do it, and I'm happy to have them. There have been a few cases where a student maybe didn't really realize as a 6th grader that they would need to prepare, and it is a high school credit class. I tell them they walk in the door, it's like you're walking into high school for an hour and a half a day. So they need to kind of step up, and grades are done accordingly like that, and so, there's a final exam and all of those things. So that is an option for them to have. Yes, did that answer your question?
It did. And
Yes.
I have one more follow-up question.
ahead.
In terms of level of difficulty, you said, do these languages, means if your child is not a language kid, but a language is required, how do these languages compare in terms of the load?
As far as the different, is there a heavier load versus a lighter load?
Right. One language being more difficult than the other. I understand they're all new and
Sure.
everyone is difficult. but-
Sure. And some people just have a propensity for one versus the other. Honestly, I think that's where the 1A and 1B option is a really good one, because if a student is hesitant, just knowing that it's not a whole course just in 1 year. They have 2 years to complete that whole course. And so at the beginning, we go slower, especially 1A, and then we kind of build up momentum, and 1B is a little faster and a little more intense. But that would be hard for me to say. Some people say romance languages are a little easier to pick up on, but that might just be my bias. So I don't know if I would officially be able to answer that. Yes, there's a different alphabet, obviously, with different languages.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit to that. That is such a kid-to-kid answer, because what's funny is, I can't imagine Chinese or Japanese being easier to pick up and learn than French or Spanish or whatever. But we had kids, while I worked at Westlake High School, we had kids that just struggled with language that rocked it in Chinese.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
Okay,
But,
that helps.
yeah.
Thank you.
It is. It's almost like math and history. The
Yeah.
student is stronger in one than they're
Yeah.
they're so different that that's sometimes the case. Your question.
Thank you. 2 questions. When are the choice forms going to be circulating?
Some already have
They're
them.
circulating now.
Yeah, our current 6th and 7th graders are,
This is news to me.
right
Depends on
now,
what class they've been in.
yeah, our counselors are going into social studies classes. They started last February 12th, whenever that was. Was it?
Monday.
Oh, that was this week. Wow. Sorry, guys. So they just started this week, going into social studies classes to do choice sheets and stuff. But a copy will come home, so don't worry.
The deadline is
Maybe the
when?
due date.
You know what? I don't want to say an absolute date without asking our counselors.
Will it be on the website?
Right now, the elective choices are on the website. There are also videos about all of the different electives by department on the website. And the actual drop dead, give us your choice sheet date, I don't know where it is right now, but we'll be sure that it's crystal clear.
And then,
It's not Friday.
It's typically like somewhere around the first week of March.
okay. And the question about, you said the upside is they can start high school with 4.0. What's the downside if they don't do well with that? They start high school with a 3.2.
That's
Walk it up, yeah.
Sure, for sure. As magnet students, we require them to take a language, and they should be taking at least 2 years, the 1A and 1B option, unless they're doing Chinese in 7th grade, and then it would be Chinese 1 and then Chinese 2. And of course for Spanish, there's Spanish 1 and 2 available, and I can talk about that. But yeah, absolutely, that is a possibility. Any more questions just in general? And I was going to talk just a minute about yes, go ahead.
The choice sheet, they have to pick 2 languages, right? The first and second choice is what I've heard.
Yes, yeah.
So how likely are they to get their first choice?
Very likely.
Very
Very
Yeah.
likely. Yes. Honestly, I can't think of a time when
Yeah.
it's very likely. Yes. It's just in case, and sure, that could potentially happen, but it's very likely at this point. All right. As far as Spanish goes, which is a little bit different, so I just wanted to talk a minute about that. I'm just going to refer to my notes. There is, of course, Spanish 1A and 1B, just like the other languages, and then there's Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. First main question usually people have is, how do I know if my student should be taking Spanish, if they're interested in Spanish, how do I know that they should be taking Spanish 1 versus Spanish 1A? And that's just a preparation idea. So really it would be that if a student has a little bit, maybe just some interest, had some Spanish maybe in some classes in elementary school, and has not a native speaker, but just is exposed to it and interested in it and really wants to, and they feel like they can commit to that, then that would be the decision to take Spanish 1, which is a full year, just like a high school credit class, versus breaking it up and doing Spanish 1A and 1B. And that should probably most likely happen in 7th grade if they were going to start with language. Usually, and I would say there's always an exception, but in general, a 6th grader taking just Spanish 1, it's quite a load. And so that's something that there's always exceptions, but in general, we counsel mostly against trying to do that. So that would be a 7th grade, 8th grade, Spanish 1, and then Spanish 2 in 8th grade. If they're coming in 6th grade, they really want to do it, Spanish 1A, 6th grade, 1B, 7th grade, and then 8th grade, they obviously are going to take Spanish 2. So that's just in, students without a lot of experience with Spanish. Then there's the students who've gone through the dual language program, so that's a separate situation, and there's an entrance exam for students who are native, near native, or it's just Spanish speakers, is that we would say. And there has to be an entrance exam. There's a possibility of, if they place and they're ready to take, if they do well enough and they are able to place into Spanish for Spanish speakers, there's a Spanish, for Spanish speakers 1, 2, and 3. So they can start in 6th grade with SS1, 7th grade SS2, and 8th grade SS3. But nobody places out of SS1. To my understanding. Everybody, you take the exam qualifies you to get into SS1. That's right, and I don't want to misspoke. I'm paraphrasing from other teachers. Are there any questions about that? I know that can be a little complicated. And hopefully between yeah.
Well, so my daughter went through the dual language. She took the entrance exam. She qualified for SS1. I'm not native. No one in our house is native Spanish speakers. We were all like, what? No. And we didn't actually say that to her. We were just like, oh, that's interesting. And she, the first 2 weeks she was drowning. And it was like full on. So she tried to advocate for herself, and I ended up talking with the teacher. And what ended up happening is because frankly it was lack of space, she got put in Spanish 1A, which she's like, so boring. It was like there was no, and part of it was, I think, and I don't know, this is just something to think about with them. I know there's a lot of differences in the dual language programs, but it seemed like and I think part of it also was Spanish 1 was completely full. Now, mind you, my thought is though, I was just hoping that instead of like saying, okay, so today we're going to learn how to say greetings, that part could be, like there's certain transitions that could be spoken in Spanish, and but it just seemed like it was kind of like this all or none thing. And so, I mean, honestly, even this morning she was like, I don't know why I didn't get put in Spanish 1. I'm like, class classes were full. Talk to your teacher. I don't really care anymore. like, you've had a rough year. Like, I mean, the classes are hard. You know, there's lots of homework in these classes. So, personally, she is where she is, and I think it worked out.
Right.
But it's almost like, I just wish there was a little bit more of the conversational, even if it's happening like, everyone come in, sit down, get your pencils out, or just, where it's just that they're getting that kind of receptive language,
Right.
brain muscle
Yeah.
practice.
Just some more immersion.
Yeah, and I mean, like every other week she's like, I'm gonna lose all my Spanish. I'm like,
Oh, no.
I'm not listening.
Not I mean, I do.
You're gonna What's that?
She's saying all this in Spanish?
No, yeah, I know. I'm like, watch soap operas. Like, she's watching some soap operas on the side. Like,
Oh my
I
God.
mean, we have a good relationship, so it's not terrible. But this whole Spanish thing, it was a thorn in the side for a while. But it was just, and what the teacher actually said, she's like, oh yeah, she qualified. Oh, but she was at the kind of lower end. So it's like, well, if they scored like out of 100, let's just throw that out there, a 75, maybe Spanish for Spanish speakers at Kealing isn't the best place, because some magnet programs have Spanish for Spanish speakers, but that's the most intense class they have, and there's no homework. Whatever homework they don't get that class, they take home, but a lot of those kids aren't taking home homework, so that they're able to then, like, she could have done that class if she had no other really caseload, or
Right.
caseload, workload.
Understand.
Anyway, so just a thought.
Ideally, yeah, that being able to be placed in Spanish 1 would have been the solution, but again, that's
Yeah,
worse.
it may have been
But,
2
you
weeks
know,
too late.
a constant juggling act we have is, I mean, we build a schedule based on student choice. And the unfortunate thing is when our foreign language department scheduling is tight. Like, especially with Spanish.
Yeah.
So, we have to do this juggling act of, okay, here's the staff we have, here's what kids need, holy cow. And sometimes it's a challenge. In an ideal perfect world, yes, there would be some sort of in between. But it's just not staffingly possible, if that's a word. I just made it one. So, and there is the jump from a dual language program in elementary school to Spanish for Spanish speakers is not, there's some alignment that still needs to happen there.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, district-wide,
Yeah.
not just,
Yeah.
if our teachers teach that course and are true to what that course is intended to be, then it can be too much for a lot of kids. But they're trying to be true to what they've been given that they're to teach. So, and we've, our folks have tried to make adjustments here and there to try to fill in some gaps that we've noticed, but the reality is that's a high school level course, and not a 1A high school level
Yeah.
course, but like the whole shebang in 1 year for a 6th grader, that alone is like, oh. So, there's a lot of factors that go into this juggling act. So and it's not perfect, and there's always room for improvement. But anyway, I'm rambling now, so I'll stop. But
There was another question, you had another question.
Oh, I just wanted to piggyback on what Kim said. My daughter also went through dual language, and I drove across town for her to have this. And my understanding was she came out as a very strong Spanish speaker. That's what we've always been told. And again, we don't speak any Spanish in the home. So she did Spanish for Spanish speakers, and the stress in December just got too much for her, and she dropped. But what I'd really like to know or see in the future, I mean, is that really just going to be the option? You have to take Spanish for Spanish speakers out of dual language, or go back to Spanish 1, which I know is a more accelerated class, but learn the colors again, learn to count again. I mean, she learned that stuff in kindergarten, and to me it was, I've loved everything about Kealing except for that one issue. It was real difficult because I expected there and was kind of led to believe that there would be a track for her to continue in Spanish. Now she's not getting any Spanish, she'll take Spanish 1 next year and we'll go from there. But do you see anything in the future for these dual language kids, or is it just an impossibility with the schedule?
I mean, in all honesty, the answer to the second part of that question is, that's a year-to-year answer. Because we don't know for sure how many kids we're gonna have for different levels, until that year comes. So, I mean, right now, the reality is like, just staffing wise, it's just not realistic. And I know that, you know, that for some families that creates a tough choice. And that tough choice may be going to middle school that has a dual language program versus coming to the Kealing magnet program. And that, I've realized that is a hard choice for some folks, and I hate that. But with the
But I don't
staffing.
think that's even really out there. Like, I don't think, I was under the impression, oh yeah, she'll be fine in Spanish for Spanish speakers, and that it would be a natural progression. I realized she wasn't gonna no longer learn Spanish, but I just,
You mean just like if you had been
think-
informed of what Spanish for Spanish speakers
it's really,
entailed?
yes, exactly.
Like,
I think that the best way to address the issue that you're talking about is that alignment that I was talking about. That's a conversation. It is a conversation at the district level to work on that alignment, because we've found that there are very specific gaps for kids who may be someone who teachers say, oh my gosh, yes, she's a wonderful Spanish speaker. Yes, but through the process of especially this year, we've figured out what some very specific gaps are that need to be filled in before arriving here. Or at least addressed.
So is it
Even
at
if-
least a work in progress?
Yeah,
I guess
oh,
what my
absolutely.
question is.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Is there alignment, I think about following on alignment issues in terms of the high school offerings at ASID around these other 6 languages that are offered here? So that helps kind of make a decision based on that. How many schools have Latin? How many high schools have Chinese? How many
So
have
I
Japanese?
did this research just recently
Excellent,
because my
thank you.
son is gonna be, he's a 6th grader here and going on to 7th. We are aligned to Bowie High School, and very, very surprised that it being the biggest high school in AISD, it only offers French and Spanish. Only 2 languages, versus some of the other schools like McCallum and Austin High, they don't offer quite as many as LASA, which is all of our languages and maybe even more, I don't know. But McCallum and Austin High at least offer more than 2. I think McCallum offered 4 or 5, and then I think Austin High as well, like 4 or 5 languages. So we told him that, yes, please, you pick the language you want to pick, and you decide. And then Ronak was like, well, then I'm gonna have to start over if I go to Bowie, if I pick Japanese, or, and I'm like, well, then you'll get to learn 2 languages, So I think when you're going into it, you have to look at your high school and know that your child may have to restart.
But is there, I'll just check the website, a sense of all these, so you have to read the will that you just did on your own. Is there a way we can put that up so everybody can look at that? Like,
Well-
the high schools, it's currently.
schools might
what's
change.
No, but it's currently. That's all we need.
Yeah, I mean, you can also go to the high school websites, they're all on there, what languages they offer as well.
No, I guess I'm saying.
So it'd be
She wants
awesome
your
if the
homework.
district had a
Everybody.
spot where.
So read the will, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So remember, just have something
That's
somewhere.
what we-
and-
yeah.
Oh, I understand, sorry, I wasn't understanding your question,
Yeah,
sorry.
don't read the will and have something for Kealing Mag folks, okay?
Like something on our webpage.
Yeah, I think it'll be helpful.
On the Kealing site.
Kealing site.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Agreed.
Another question.
Can I take your question though first? Go ahead.
Sure, so in the case of like your son, if he did get the high school credit, would he get the high school credit for the classes that
Yes, he
next
does,
year?
but he would just
Even
have
if
to.
the high school doesn't offer it?
Right, he would have to start over.
Yeah, and it's, most high schools require that you have, I don't know what most, I think it's 2 years of a language.
Yeah.
So if you do 1A and 1B here, and then you go to a high school that doesn't have that language, that's why you have to start over. You still have that credit, but you have to have 2 credits of the same language. And that's what it is. And LASA requires 3 credits of the same language.
And different programs do require different.
Yeah, LASA requires 3, but like Austin High, depending on what academy you're in, if you're in global studies, you take Spanish you are locked in to take Spanish. And it's, I believe, I don't have a kid at Austin High, but it is my home school. And you have to take it all 4 years, I think.
Yeah, there are some very specific
Yeah, because it's
requirements.
the global studies program. Maybe it's not all 4 years, because she's looking at me like crazy.
Not to graduate, it's not all 4 years, but that's true, that
They
they
have
do
some kind
require, for different academies, and global studies would be one. Minimally, it is
2 years.
2 years to graduate, but the global studies is 3, it just happens to be 3, so it doesn't have to be.
And then I think classics you have to take Latin, I believe.
That's true. There was yes, you're.
So, if a child takes French 1A and 1B in Kealing, in high school, how many years of French would they have to take then? Depending on, it seems different high
Depends on
schools.
which high school.
Depending on the program in the high
But
school.
at least a year?
At least a year, because if they walk in with 1 credit, they'll have to have 2 to graduate, so at least 1 year. And then colleges in general, they want to see that there's follow through with 1 language, so generally 3 looks really good, and then obviously if you're going, there's the AP option. But I would say most colleges, and I have a senior, so a lot of research that I've done, and I've taught AP before, they really want to see at least a 3-year commitment to 1 language. You can always take another language like your senior year. So
You could take a different language.
you could, but a 3-year commitment shows that you've got some follow through, and they want to see that for sure. That's the thing. You had a question earlier, I'm sorry, did we answer
It
your
was
question?
answered,
Okay.
although now I'm thinking, if you, a 3-year commitment, that whole idea, if your kid takes a couple years of a language here, and then takes a year in high school, no one's, you're not a university professor or whatever, but are they looking at that 3-year as like even middle school to high school, or do they typically expect 3 years of something else in high school?
They see it as a high school credit. They're
Oh,
not
yeah,
gonna,
that's
it's
right.
not
Okay,
gonna
it's not like it's
distinguish,
coming
they're
from
not
middle
gonna-
school
That's
or-
right,
okay.
they'll see that high school credit.
And how is that transition, I mean, from Kealing to whatever, like Spanish, for example, that transition into high school, is it pretty, I mean, is it, it's just like 1 year to the next year, it's pretty easy?
Again, now, always depends on the program, the high school, but from the feedback that we've had from LASA, several students have, just, and that's feedback from LASA, it's good, there's, from German and French and some Spanish students, I know it feels like a good transition for most of them. And I do have some experience with Austin High. I actually just saw 2 of my French students at Austin.
I can only speak to LASA. My kid is a sophomore there. He did 1A in 6th grade here, Spanish, 1B 7th, 2 in 8th. LASA requires a placement exam after you've taken 2 years anywhere, and they'll decide if you get to be placed in 3 or not. Well, they don't decide. You take the test either in June or August. He bombed the test, but he made a 98 on the national exam in Spanish 2 here, and he had all A's. So I was like, and LASA suggested that he does not take Spanish 3, and he was like, Mom, I gotta take Spanish 3, I'm not doing it again. And I was like, oh, but I came here and I talked to his Spanish teacher, I talked to Miss Coburn. I don't understand, right? We're kind of in alignment. He ended up convincing me that he needed to take Spanish 3 because that was the cool thing to do. And he did. He went in the first day and it was all Spanish, no English is spoken. The placement exam was mostly written, and they weren't taught here to read or to write as much as was expected on the test. So after all of that investigation, he came home and cried the first day and said, I can't do this. And then he ended up the year with an A. So it was fine. We're done with Spanish. And my second kid will not, didn't do a language in 6th grade. So we all learned from all this. But it was interesting to me that what you come out of here should be aligned with our sister school, right? And that was the conversation I'm having with LASA, and I'm having a conversation with Kealing also, just because, I mean, all schools can't have exactly the same curriculum, but that seems very confusing to me, especially with the metrics that I was given, right? The national exam and his grades. I didn't know what else to.
But at the same time, I'm not the same God of yours, but my kid was through Spanish 2 here, and then because we had moved from Ohio, he missed 1A, and I was too scared after that placement test to take the chance of Spanish 3. So he's now in a pass-fail right now, and all I can say is thank God for Kealing. And he has come back and got more of the homework because that teacher up there, I feel sorry for the kids too much who are only with one, trying to deal with what's being handed. I've seen what's handed out.
For Spanish 2, you mean?
Yeah, he's repeating Spanish 2, which really is a drag because it takes out the selection when he's already done it. He's killing it in there. But I went there thinking we weren't aligned and it wasn't working. But their Spanish 2 is not on par with our Spanish 2.
We didn't do that.
So it gives you the impression that it's not, but it's actually, their Spanish 2 isn't better. It's more,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
it's more.
So their Spanish
Their
is
Spanish
not,
is
it's not,
aligned.
preparing them for their own test. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think so. Like.
No, you're not
they're-
saying that, or
they're-
no,
It
it's
feels
not?
like to me, they're getting more grammar here and they can deal with it, they got.
Oh, I
they
believe the
can't
program
have-
here is awesome.
Yeah, they can't
I
get.
just was surprised at the placement exams. Like, I'm like, what is the placement exam supposed to be testing?
I don't know what loss is doing with that because it's not, their Spanish 2 is, I expect the Spanish 2 to be,
Yeah, okay,
you know,
let's
way
get to that.
above and it's not, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is the Spanish 2 here is just as good as the Spanish 2 there, it's something that's happening there.
It's a little bit different, and actually after both grades, I have the same time for my second son, I forced him into grade 7 Spanish 1, because he's gonna do it twice. Because I'm like, that Spanish, I'll let you know once we get to Spanish 3.
Well, you know, the interesting thing, and I'm not saying anything about either program, just, it's different. Spanish, I mean, I've heard level 3, and I don't, your kid's taking Spanish too, right?
No, my kid's in German.
Okay.
Everyone wants to talk about German. It's fun.
But
it's great. It's awesome. So I'm going to Lhasa.
Is it level 3 spoken?
That's the thing.
It might be.
I think level,
I
well,
think
that's what I heard,
Usually
all the
it
languages.
is.
Level
It's
3 is
like
spoken.
anything is four.
She
It's
does.
three.
I mean,
It's like you're in
it's
it.
fun though. They're having.
I mean-
It's not pressure.
This is not a commercial for the language.
I'm an evil bad person. I'll show you.
So I think she has made changes to deal with it. Yeah, there's a
So
lot
the-
more.
It's a gross
In there this year.
They were just quick general questions, because I do have to head out. Did you have one more question?
I have a question for Ms. Carter, actually.
Anybody have a question for Ms. Vogel before she has to?
Okay, sure.
All right, thank you all so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
And by the way, Amy loves French.
And while we're on that path, why don't we go ahead and start our people of the year?
Well, so just to kind of wrap up the conversations that just happened, you guys, the reality is, like, foreign languages at different middle schools are different. Foreign languages at different high schools are different. I mean, in an ideal perfect world, they would all be the same, I guess, but not really. Like, so, you know,
So I have
just
a question, how many Kealing kids do go on to Lhasa?
so
That's a good
So
question.
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, we do. No, alignment, they'll come down and have talks for alignment in some of the other rooms. That happens. But that doesn't happen here, so I just wanted to know general percentages. Are we a feeder to Lhasa?
No.
No.
Because we're not in the vertical team, but are we feeding them?
Well, we feed
We
all
feed
high
every
schools.
high school in the district.
Do we predominantly?
Did you have a question? Well, I mean, I don't know how, like, I don't know what else there is, like, we do. The reality is we feed every high school in the district. Yes, we probably have more kids that go to Lhasa from here than any other middle school? Probably, but like that's a vicious
Yeah.
thing.
In all the discussion regarding Spanish, you mentioned about some staffing issues. Without mentioning anybody's name, with Latin over here, I've got a kid who's in Latin. Homework is not posted on on time, and it really causes issues with the kids because you know, they've been told, do your homework on the same day if you want to keep up with, and the homework is not posted till a few days later, and then the kids have to double up.
Yeah, so this is actually a terrific individual conversation that I would love to hear that feedback so that we can work on it.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Thank you so much.
So, transitioning, do you want to go ahead and talk
Yeah,
about admissions and maybe, I guess we go choice sheets?
So yeah, we kind of already hit choice sheets, and I think what I was gonna say, I said. But they are, you can actually see the elective choices for 6th grade and then the elective choices for 7th and 8th grade online right now. If you go to our website and then it's under student life course, it's course something or other in electives and electives. Yeah, you've got videos describing all the electives, and then down at the bottom you've got the file that has the course book that describes all the electives, and then also all the 6th grade choices and the 7th and 8th grade choices. I just updated those today with a couple of little changes. So anyway, yes ma'am.
How many electives do 7th graders take?
It depends somewhat. So I'm sorry, they started talking in my ear. I haven't lost my mind. So everybody, we're asking everybody to give us their choices 1 through actually 15 this year, as opposed to 10. Just because sometimes kids unfortunately choose like 3 or 4 electives that end up all being offered at the same time. So then we start running out of choices. Anyway, what they actually end up having is somewhat dependent on really their math class more than anything, and then also somewhat dependent on if they choose any year-long electives. But you know, you've got 4 of the 8 taken up by core classes at least, and then a 5th taken up by a foreign language, and then a half of another one is PE. So then the remaining.
The whole year?
What's that?
1A is the whole year?
Yes.
1A and then 1B?
No, 1A is the entire
It's-
year.
yeah, it's
And then
the
1B
whole
would be
year
8th
long.
grade.
Okay, put this into the whole year. What are the, can you go over the requirements again? PE is 1 whole year, 6th grade, half year, 7th, half year, 8th. Fine
Yes.
arts is 1 year.
And what?
Fine arts is 1 year.
Yes.
And
It doesn't have to all be the same year.
Right.
It can be a semester here and a semester here.
Is there any other?
No. I mean,
Keyboarding?
core classes. Keyboarding is no longer a required
Oh, now you
thing.
tell me.
It used to
I'm
be
just
a
kidding.
requirement
I'm
for
just kidding.
graduation, but
It
it's
should
not
be, I
anymore.
don't know.
So,
I have a question. If your child does basketball or tennis, is that ever a class?
So what the district started doing, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. So they have to take PE.
Yeah.
So if they are in athletics, then during that PE period, they can actually be in an athletics class that does different stuff than the PE class does. Like their class is focused on conditioning for sports and all. And also some intentional work on character building and teamwork and all of the wonderful things you learn from athletics. But it's just that same period as PE. So the way we do it, everybody starts out just in a PE class, and then whichever kids say, no, I want to be in athletics and turn in a physical, then we just move them within that period.
Okay. And
So-
they actually play, like engage more in that sport?
Yes.
Not,
I mean,
not a
the-
specific
it's-
sport.
right,
It's,
it's
not,
not
like a
like-
soccer class.
Right, it's not
It's-
like high school where there's a football period and there's a soccer period and a,
And that depends on the high school too.
well, true, good point. But, yeah.
Sports, like they can be introduced to multiple sports.
Well, they are in PE, but in athletics, it's like more about conditioning for athletics as opposed to just the normal PE curriculum. Does that make sense?
So my kids did athletics. They first were in 7th grade PE, but then I think one was they both ended ended up in athletics and loved it. And they said, thanks to coach, we made the soccer team. They knew how to do weight. They, they start off each class, sometimes they do these like timed drills. And so they have to do so many, and then he speeds it up. So it's really quite a conditioning class. But they came out, even though I think one of the kids' classes was quite large, she came out with like a sense of camaraderie with that class and a real sense of team. And Coach Gardner, who taught both sessions, the girls loved it.
Yeah, if you'd like another about that, I had one who went through 8th grade and did it 2 years ago with athletics and loved it. I have 2 right now who are current 8th graders who weren't interested. Honestly, the biggest reason they weren't interested, their friends weren't doing that, they wanted to be in team class with their friends. So that's, like it or not, that's going to be your determining factor, but yeah, the athletic sports, it doesn't mean you're in a particular sport, but it does. It's like going to a class of Y, us going to a class of Y, that's what they're doing.
You just
It's
sign
active
up and do
conditioning,
it.
they're not just rotating through different types of sports like they seem to do in PE.
I believe that you sign up when you go to when the kids go to class.
When you first get into your PE class, you say, hey, I'd really like to do athletics. You talk to the teacher.
Yeah.
Then you have to turn in a physical, and then you can.
You do have to turn in the physical, so,
Yeah.
and that has to be after April something.
And is this for 7th and 8th grade?
Yes.
Okay.
Not 6th grade.
Yeah, so you probably, if you were thinking about it, you should get the physical form for this spring to get, if your well checks are like over the summer, to get it signed, so you don't have to worry about it in the fall if your child decides that they want to do athletics. My daughter did that and she loved it, so. And she didn't have to dress out, that was probably the
You just turn that
best
physical in.
thing about it.
Did you turn physical in
Yeah.
day one? Like you just turn that physical in? Day first day of school next year?
Well, maybe, I don't know about the first day of school, but yeah, whenever they bring, whenever I guess they talk about it in gym class, right?
Okay, it was, because Dylan had his exam like at the end of, or May, I think it was, and so I just had it done, because I didn't know what he was gonna do 7th grade, if he wanted to play like basketball or whatever. I didn't even think about the athletics or PE, and then he's in it now, and he's like, Mom, where's my physical? I gotta dig it out. But I had it, I mean, it was all filled out and everything was ready to go, so.
So Ms. Carter, is it offered every period that PE is offered? Or will their schedule have to change?
No, so the way we've done it is so that, no, their schedule doesn't have to change. Every period that 7th and 8th grade PE is offered A1, A4, B5, and B8. Period. The other periods are all 6th grade. So whatever, yeah. We just do it all on the computer and the kids never know it.
Aren't you at
Every once in a while.
All right, well, oh, yeah.
Oh, I had a question about fine arts. Obviously, my daughter's in 6th grade now, she's taking art and she's taking theater. So I assume, if for the 7th and 8th, for the requirement, will the classes she already took this year count as that requirement, or you have to start?
Yeah, technically, if she's already had a year, then technically she's done. We hope she's not, but yeah.
All right, so admissions?
Yeah, so I've actually, we've had some interesting technology challenges. So I don't have as much information as I wanted to have for you guys today, but I can tell you we're probably right at about 1,000 applications. Maybe a little less, maybe 900 something.
Average, like last year?
We're about on par with last year, maybe a little bit less than last year. Although I think we've done a little bit better job of not having very many included in that number that just clicked a button and then didn't really mean to do anything. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. All of their folders will be ready for Monday. Monday, our PD day, our staff will use 2 departments. Social studies and English will spend the day scoring all the essays. And then math and science will spend the day going through and looking at everything else and putting data on the front score sheet. Then we'll merge it all back together, and then I'll go through with the final shebang. So yeah.
Is it 1,000 just fifth graders, or is it 1,000?
Total.
Total.
Do you know, I could be wrong, this is purely anecdotal right now, but I think there's fewer non-sixth grade applicants this year. Like fewer for 7th and 8th grade than in the past. Which, I mean, I'm somewhat thankful. I hate sending, I'm sorry you didn't get in letters, so, you know.
Because probably for 7th and 8th, it's pretty, probably not very many
Yeah,
open spots,
no,
right? The
no,
attrition is
there
not
are.
that. That's good.
There are, so.
Thanks, good.
Anywho, one other thing that, before I go to what Dee wanted me to tell you guys, Shadowing's rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
Jean's
so we
here.
had a-
Thank you
finished.
guys a million times. Thank you. Like, got shadows coming through like crazy every day, and well, not too crazy, just you know. Anyway, it's rocking and rolling, and you know, as usual.
Kid's shadow.
Sorry, Gina?
Yeah, so we've got a little bit of an
Let me know
update,
when you're
right?
ready.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it.
You all done?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody, I'm Gina Vance. You see my name on everything, except everything she says that. We've scheduled 355 students so far to shadow, or that's actually all we've scheduled. And our schedule is, at this point, pretty full. We have just a little bit of tweaking room at the end here, but that's it. So things are pretty much scheduled there. So 355 students. 36 students are already on the wait list for this, so we'll be dealing with that in just a little bit. Of all those that we have scheduled, there were 324 incoming 6th graders, 23 incoming 7th graders, and 8 incoming 8th graders. So you can see the vast, overwhelming majority of these are folks who are going to come in for 6th grade. Of those, we tend to outweigh the boys to the girls each year, and we did the same thing this year. We've got 195 boys who we scheduled and 160 girls. So, to help with getting them around class, we have 258 hosts that have signed up. Of those, 198 of those are 6th graders, 114 of those are girls, and 86 are boys. So here's your math for you. We've got 160 girls coming in and 114 girls to take them around. So all of the 6th grade girls who signed up to host should be able to host at least once. Of the boys, we got 195 that we scheduled to go around, and we got 86 boys who signed up to take them around. All of them will go once, twice, and some 3 times around. So if you've got a 6th grade boy and you're getting multiple messages, that would be the reason. We have great people who are helping take over. I'll give you more numbers. So far, week 1, we had 88 people come through, students. Week 2, we had 82 students come through. Week 3, so far we've had 67 come through, and after tomorrow, there'll be a total of 82. So at this point, we started shadowing on January 29th. We have scheduled and run through 237 students. Again, we'll have 252 have come through by the end of this week, so lots and lots of kids. We're working very closely with the magnet office to make sure, as we said, these are overwhelmingly incoming 6th graders. It's extremely, extremely important to us that they get a real taste of what Kealing's like, so we can't overload these classrooms. So we have to do a schedule where we don't have any more than 3 students per any teacher's schedule. If you guys haven't caught on to this yet, all of your kids are all in the same math class, core classes. They are all the same teachers. And so that's where we have a little program running, and that's why we limit the numbers. We just can't have them all. So our biggest limiting factor, again, is the incoming 6th graders. Those are most of those numbers right there. So, I need to introduce you guys to a couple people because I'm graduating. I've been here a long time, and I have 2 current 8th graders, and so this is my last year. But we have Stacy Vandegraff over here, who is amazing. This woman is amazing. You guys need to keep her. She has a current 6th grader, and Chloe's great. You saw her in the musical. She was wonderful. And anyway, Stacy's been great. She has been working with me throughout the entire season here. She's picked up. If you're getting any notices from us, you'll see they're signed by both of us. Half the time, it's her doing it without me. I'm so happy. She's going to start getting on my case because I keep sliding and letting her do more and more of it. So she's learned really well. The other thing we've learned this year, too, is that it sure is really, really, really cool to have 2 people doing the scheduling like this. So Stacy needs help next year. So if anyone thinks they'd like to come in and help with this, come talk to us. We will train you, I promise. Stacy can attest to it. We'll train you in stages so we don't scare you. But we'll help you with this. And again, we also can go after, it can be extremely scary and overwhelming if you look at it without taking it in stages. And we're also, again, incoming new parents after you go through this application process. If you're watching this video, we'll be asking you to if we don't have somebody else. So
that's what we're looking for. We have other folks that are helping to step up and take over too, because we have a lot of folks who are working on this program this year who are graduating. Stephanie Shropshire has been our main lead morning person, and she's graduating this year. But we have Andrew Brower right here, who's helping take over. She also would like some help, so if we need if we can get another person to help in the morning as a lead person, that would be ideal. And then in the afternoons, Rajel's been helping out so very much. She's still here. We have Michelle Manning, who's helping to take over in the afternoons. But again, anyone else who thinks they want to be an integral part of this, it really is cool. And it's a cool thing to do as a committee. It's not so cool to do by yourself. So, and as you can see, a lot of people want to do this. We're offering all the slots we can. We've scheduled everyone we can, and we still have a wait list. So it's a very popular program. I think most of you guys probably went through it, I suspect, if you're here. So I think that's it. So if I didn't just numb your ears with all of those words in that very short amount of time, any questions that I can pretend to answer? Yes?
Were you able to take more shadows this year? Or
Were you able
was
to
it
take,
about the same?
we may have scheduled just slightly more this year, but mostly it's because of the upperclassmen. We're really limited on the number of sixth graders we can do, but the upperclassmen, it doesn't matter. Like last year, we did them in date stamp order, period. It didn't matter if you were an incoming 7th grader or 8th grader or 6th grader, we just took you in the order you came in. And when we looked at the end of the year, we went, because we had a wait list too, we went, you know, it's not a problem to have those extra 7th and 8th graders around. So this year we did it differently. We said, okay, we can't take any more than X number of 6th graders each day, but any 7th or 8th graders that are incoming, they're applying, we can fit them in up to at least